Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Need Some Introduction. I'm your host, Victor, and on this podcast, we go week to week covering something we're watching on TV and hopefully having some recommendations for you all along the way as well. Currently, we are covering Pluribus here on the feed as well, but in today's episode, we'll primarily be talking about Welcome to Derry, this sixth episode, I should say, sixth episode of Welcome to Derry. 8 episodes total for the season, so we are getting very close to the end. And some other things we've been watching as well. Of course, I caught up on a couple of things during Thanksgiving. In this conversation, I'm joined, as usual, by Darren. Darren, how you doing?
I'm pretty good, Victor. Yes. Caught up on a couple of things too, but I'm really interested in getting your take on the Chair Company finale.
Yes, we will definitely be talking about the finale of the Chair Company as well. And we'll be spoiling that, of course. So if you aren't caught up, do check the show notes for timestamps if you want to jump around. But quite a few other things I've been checking on and some announcements here as well. First of all, the solo episode I did last week of Pluribus, because Sona was on jury duty, was very popular, Darren, by the way. So it was either the shorter episode length or it was that it was published relatively early compared to some of the other episodes we put out, or it was because a lot of other people weren't recording because they were on Thanksgiving break. So maybe there was just less competition, or people liked the solo episodes, or there was a lot of chatter about the theory of like what happened in the final moments of that episode, that cliffhanger ending. So one of those unrelated things is the reason that episode was so popular.
And unfortunately, we'll never know.
We literally will never know. Exactly. I will never know what it is. Like next week's episode will probably go back to this usual downloads, but we'll see how it goes.
It was the look on Carol's face at the end, I think, and everyone was like, "What? What is she looking at? Why? What has caused that?"
I had my theory as to what we saw under the cover. And do you have a theory? I don't know if you want to put it here in case it's a spoiler for folks who haven't caught up, but do you have a theory as to what you might have seen under that tarp?
I do have a theory, and it's probably what most people think. Yeah, which is all I'll say.
My theory on the feed was not as dark. I think maybe you're going the same direction, that there were some very dark responses on YouTube. And I was like, I honestly don't think the show's going to go that dark, but maybe I'm the one who's naive here. Maybe they are going to go that dark with the story. So we'll have to wait and see. But we'll know, I'm pretty sure we'll find out pretty quickly what's going on. And then what's the true mechanism of this mind glue and what is the price of this piece.
It's such a fun show. I love
very
watching
fun.
that show.
Yeah, very curious to see how it all shakes out. And I did love the whole metaphor of everybody on Earth broke up with Carol. Like literally no one wants to hang out with her. And of course I keep doubling down on that this is all like a metaphor for AI, but maybe just for like technology in general. I absolutely loved the fact that no one wants to hang out with Carol, so they have the drone coming to pick up, and the drone coming to get the garbage gets tangled up in the light post. It's just fantastic. Always like that. Like we've been promised drone delivery for quite some time, and that's probably how it's going to go for quite some time still.
That's the best they can get. Seriously. Come on, guys.
Darren, did your daughters catch up on these first 4 episodes of Stranger Things?
Did they ever? Yeah, my goodness. My oldest daughter was on a camp, so she was spewing that she had to watch it late. And my younger daughter was just teasing her with spoilers during the watch. But yeah, they're all over it. They love it. And I caught little bits and pieces. And yeah, fantastic. What a phenomena.
Yeah, quite the phenomena. I have to say that I very much enjoyed my first watch of Stranger Things and honestly watched it in a very cursory way. And I thought it's very much like the recipe of Netflix, where every season really sets things up really well at the beginning. And then just like everything else with Netflix, the seasons are way too long. But you like all the characters, so you don't mind that there's like a lot of flab on the storytelling. And then they always have really good finales on all of these seasons. So like this has been the formula for the show. And I kind of just accepted that watching it casually the first time around, watching it in a much more abbreviated fashion with my daughter who like binged this whole thing in the past couple of weeks. You could see the seams a lot more. But I have to say a couple of things. One is I really think they did a great job with casting. I really do love these kids that are in the show. So they did a terrific job with that. Some like Maya Hawke, I think, and Joe Carey, for example, I think are like the real standouts. Like they're probably going to have a long career beyond this show. But in general, I mean, I like the chemistry with the kids for sure. But like I said, I see a lot of it's probably I've outgrown. This is 10 years later. So even now, I probably have even less patience for this type of storytelling. But I have to say that I have never seen my daughter so engaged with the way that the story is being told, that I've never seen her be so thrilled, like literally jumping up and down on the sofa with every different plot reveal, and couldn't wait to play the next episode. And that I thought was so fun to watch, because this is like her Star Wars moment in a way, right?
That's excellent. That's so much fun to see that. That's really cool. I didn't realize Maya Hawke was in it. She's Ethan's and Uma Thurman's daughter, isn't she?
Yes, she looks just like Uma Thurman. So it's a dead ringer for her, actually. So yeah, she's terrific, especially in these episodes. And as is per norm on this, I actually thought that this picks up immediately after the finale of season 4. And I thought, again, of all the seasons, probably this is the clumsiest introductory episode to kind of get back into the groove. I mean, it's been a little while, but it, as is the norm with this show, the episode 4 cliffhanger, the setup for the back half of the season, is like my daughter so on board. It was like everybody in the family was pumping their fists, excited for those last batch of episodes, which are coming Christmas. And by the way, my theory here, I don't think this is a spoiler because this is based on just my gut instinct, but part of my frustration with seeing the first 4 episodes of this season of the show so far was that at the end of last season, I'm not sure exactly what it was, but I was like dead set that they're going to do Back to the Future and Back to the Future 2, something like that, where they're going to rewind the clock and kind of set things right by traveling into the past. And I was like very confident about this and all this like imagery about time, etc. And again, we get into this first 4 episodes of this season. This is much more Cameron than anything else. It's very aliens, like Demogorgons attacking the military base. It's more horror action now. So it's very much more in that vein with, and of course we have Linda Hamilton from the Terminator films in there, playing the role as well. So she's another callback to Cameron. There's so many Easter eggs for 80s stuff. Without spoiling anything, we actually travel back in someone's memory, and we're in the 1950s in high school, and I'm like, okay, we're finally getting the Back to the Future part of the story, and we're finally going to get it. Probably that will be the end of this batch, or the whole series, I guess. So I think that's going to be very fun to do a little Back to the Future. Can't wait to see these characters. I love that conceit in Back to the Future Part 2. Also loved it in the third Harry Potter movie, where like the characters are in the past, manipulating their own versions of themselves from the past. Very cool. I love that conceit, those time loop type stories. So hopefully that's the direction they go in.
Yeah, love it, love it. So the time loop story is going to lead us into Watchmen as well, because
yes.
So is this Stranger Things going to consume our Christmas? Are we going to have to work around the release date of this? Is it Christmas Eve, Christmas Day?
I believe it is Christmas Day that the 2 or 3 episodes drop, and then New Year's Day we get the last episode, which will also play in movie theaters, by the way.
Cool.
So an event for the diehards.
Exactly. Well, yeah, we'll have to plan our family celebrations around the girls watching Stranger Things, I guess.
You know what? While it actually works out perfectly, because like with Thanksgiving, for example, while we're in the kitchen doing all that, they have something to do. So that's totally fine. And I'll just catch up. I mean, like I honestly did not sit down and 100% focus on the show. Although my daughter did intentionally, like she would pause the show if I had to run to do something with the prepping of dinner or something. So for the most part, I was there, but I wasn't like 110% engaged. But you know what? It's not that you could totally watch it that way. It is built for that type of thing. But I mean, it's rewarding too. I think if you really dedicate yourself, I mean, there's a lot of craft. There's a lot of Easter eggs. There's a lot of inside jokes if you watch the whole thing. So I don't want to disparage it. I'm just an old middle-aged man now, so it's not as engaging for me, but it definitely is good for what it does. And like I said, my daughter adores it.
Yeah, great.
Oh, I cut you off. What were you saying?
I enjoyed walking past and seeing Linda Hamilton.
Yes.
Yeah, I read an interview with her yesterday, and she's like, I've got no interest in keeping being young. I just want my face to display the experiences of my life, and I'm just going to try to keep fit, do whatever it takes every day just to be healthy. And yeah, I really liked that idea.
We're going to talk about Welcome to Derry in a little bit, but Madeline Stowe, who was one of my girls back in my day, older than I was, but like kind of a formative person when I was younger and watching Stakeout and some of those other films from the late 80s, early 90s when she was in everything. And then she really kind of disappeared for a long period of time. But anyway, this woman is nearly 70 years old and she looks incredible. Wow. I mean, to Linda Hamilton's point, she probably has done a little bit of something, but she always looked great and she still looks great. So
I kept seeing her name in the credits for Welcome to Derry, and I didn't realize that was her until last night's episode. Yeah, she looks amazing. 12 Monkeys she was in. Last of the Mohicans, I remember her very clearly. Yeah, she was just stunning in that. Yeah.
Also a movie called Blink, where she gets her sight and then she can see a serial killer. Anyway, like not a great film, but I remember it very fondly.
That's nice.
Okay, next week, there's this slew of stuff that's coming on Netflix. Jay Kelly is coming out on Netflix. It's been playing in theaters for a few weeks now. And this is Noah Baumbach's latest film. There's a lot of films, a lot of Netflix films, by the way, that are in contention for Academy Awards this year. This is definitely one of them. Clooney supposedly gives a very good performance, but they're saying that it may be finally Adam Sandler's turn to get a Academy Award nomination for this film. So very curious to see this. I'm a big fan of Noah Baumbach and his these kind of family comedies, dramedies that he makes. Marriage Story, I think, is fantastic. But even a lot of these other films he's made have to do with brothers and these relationship between these older men. They're definitely looking forward to this. And I think we'll probably discuss it in some way next week as well. Over the Thanksgiving weekend, I also saw Wake Up Dead Man, the new Knives Out film. What's your relationship with those films?
I'm a big fan of Rian Johnson. I think he's extremely talented. Unlike a lot of people, I liked his Star Wars. And yeah, I think the Knives Out films are great fun, perfect Netflix fodder, perhaps some of the best Netflix fodder out there. And I think I saw the first one in the cinema.
Yeah.
And yeah, a lot of fun. And it's great to get all these actors. I think they're different actors apart from the lead James Bond guy, Daniel Craig. They're all different mix each film. So yeah, I'm interested to see the new one, but I won't go and see it in the cinema. I'll wait till it comes out.
Yeah, I think we have like 2 weeks to wait, and I won't give a full review here, obviously, because most people are going to see this when it comes to Netflix, although it is playing in theaters until then, but pretty limited. The Glass Onion played for one weekend when that premiered, and it made a lot of money in a very short period of time. But then Netflix took it out of theaters, of course, because that's just their thing. I don't understand. I mean, they're just giving up money. I don't understand their plan, but regardless, this one did not do as well in theaters, but I think they're going to keep it in theaters until the film premieres in 2 weeks. So we'll have a full discussion then, but I'm very curious to get your take on it because I've heard a lot of people saying this is the best of the Knives Out films. And for me, I do recommend it, by the way. I do recommend it. For me, this was the worst of the Knives Out films. But the compliment I pay to it is that Josh O'Connor, I think his name is. I always confuse him with the other O'Connor or O'Connell. So he's O'Connor. I think I got that right.
This is the guy from Challengers.
Yes, the guy from Challengers.
And he also played Prince Charles, I think, in the Crown.
Exactly.
Really
exactly.
Good actor.
He is terrific, and it is really his movie, and he's in almost every single scene, and he's fantastic. And the second thing I would say that I really appreciated about it was that you were saying how not only do you do have a different cast of characters, but it's not only that, this is a completely different type of mystery movie than the previous two films. So in a way, it's not like Johnson is just trying to say, I'm going to make like that movie again 3 times. He's making a different movie each time. So I do appreciate that. But I have some serious problems with the way the story is told. Not the mystery. I think the mystery is maybe the most clever mystery that they've come up with. But I think there's some serious problems with the way he tells the story. I'll say. We will save that all for when you get a chance to see it. But I do recommend it overall. I mean, the cast is, other than O'Connor, I think the cast is pretty underused because it's like a huge cast and everybody gets like 1 or 2 scenes total, except for him. But he's great, so that's a big selling point for sure.
Cool. Yeah, yeah. I'll most likely check it out as soon as it comes out because, yeah, I think you got to support these good films that go almost straight to streaming rather than the terrible ones.
Right, exactly. So just put that on your calendars, everybody. But another film that's played on Netflix recently and has become pretty popular, surprisingly, I have to say. We watched this last week. I forgot to bring it up, but I thought it was very good. But it slipped my mind because it is pretty minor film, although not in a bad way. It's just that I think these type of films don't get these splashy plays. Then after we forgot to bring it up, I almost felt like, well, maybe it'll be a forgotten thing, unfortunately, like one of those movies that Netflix has that just kind of disappear and go with little mention. But it seems to be pretty high on the streaming charts. I think it was number 1 or number 2 on all of the streaming charts this week when I looked. And it's a movie called Train Dreams, starring Joel Edgerton. And I know you saw this as well. You've actually seen this twice now, right, Darren?
I have, yeah. The first time I saw it, it was late at night and I was kind of snoozing a bit through it, but I thought it was that kind of movie where you could snooze through it because it's a very kind of slowish meditation on one man's life. And then I watched it a second time with my wife because I saw it blowing up in certain parts of the internet. People were going crazy for it. And I thought maybe I'll give it a second chance. And it really affected me the second time I watched it. And I feel like it's a mini masterpiece. I think it is an amazing work of art.
Yeah, I saw this also late at night, and nonetheless, it still moved me. It had a very strong emotional reaction to the end of the film, but it did feel a little long for me. Like it's only like an hour and 40 minutes long, and I'd say probably the first 45, almost the first full hour, I would say, I was utterly riveted. It's very meditative. It's basically a tone poem. It looks absolutely stunning. Shot digitally, by the way. It's so funny because we were just talking about how maybe the problem with Frankenstein was that you have this old timey feel, but it's shot digitally and it looks a little too crisp, a little too, you can see too much detail, and it didn't have that warmth that film gives. I'd say this movie looks beautiful. It's all set in nature. I love the way this film looks, all shot digitally. So, I mean, I guess you can make digital look any way you want to, really, people who know what they're doing. And this has very much a feel of like a Terrence Malick film, if you like that, a tone poem about this. Really not much of a story at all. It's about this man played by Joel Edgerton, who it's the turn of the century, and you get to see him live. And this is something that resonated with me, honestly, got to say, that even though it's like more than 100 years ago, he's clearing a forest, basically. That's what he does. And he is trying to make a life for himself. And he's just like we all do. He's living through this 20, 30-year period where by the end of this, they have chainsaws. The type of jobs he has have just changed fundamentally. Technology has changed what the definition of what he considered his livelihood to be, something that I think we're all living through right now, and that everybody before us has lived through as well. And all of that is just kind of this very beautiful, very simple rumination on what it is to just kind of live your life the best you can and not be like this giant superhero, but just someone who in their own mundane ways of just trying to make a life with their family. And some terrible things happen to this man, by the way, too. So it's not like nothing happens in this film. I don't want to spoil anything, but he has a rough go of it at different points. And it's just really beautiful, him accepting over the course of the film all the aspects of his life. And Edgerton, they've been saying he's probably a shoo-in for an Oscar nomination. I have to say, watching the film, I don't think that's the case, not because he doesn't give it a terrific performance, but because the Academy Awards want people screaming and crying and tearing their hair out. And he's the exact opposite. This is a fully interior performance, but I think it's one of the best performances of the year. I think it's really excellent.
I was thinking about that because I remember Casey Affleck won an Oscar for Manchester by the Sea. Is that correct? Yes. And that was a very internalized performance too. So that's why I do think Joel Edgerton will be nominated. The movie is so beautiful. So it's the aspect ratio of the frame is very square. And I was wondering why that is. And I think it's so you can see more of the trees. The trees look so amazing. You can see every little branch on them, these deadly branches that can sometimes tear through people. Beautiful film. And Joel Edgerton does get his moment later in the film where he says what's inside of him.
Yeah.
And that made me quite emotional, I have to say, the second time I saw it. Everyone else is really cool in it. There's William H. Macy in a couple of
It's
bits.
terrific.
There's a couple of other
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
actors and actresses. And my wife was like, that movie was just so sad. And I'm not quite sure whether it was so sad, but it really made you think about your own life and that we
Right.
cannot all
Mm-hmm.
be superheroes. We can have ordinary lives that are extraordinary in their own ways. So yeah, I do recommend. I'm not a massive fan of Malick's films, especially Tree of Life. People have been comparing it to Tree of Life. I don't think so at all, because I found that quite monotonous, but I found this one fascinating on second viewing. So yeah, interested in what people think of this.
Yeah, I agree with that. By the way, I'm not a huge fan of Malick's film, very hit and miss. Some films of his I very much like, but more the visual styling of the film very much reminds me of Malick, but not necessarily all the like Tree of Life can get like really. It worked for me, by the way, but I'm not like one of those people who says it's a 5-star masterpiece. I had a very complicated relationship with that movie as I was watching it. Like it's flashing forward to those cityscapes and stuff. So it's very different than that one. But I definitely think that kind of the one thing I love about Malick's films is the way he just is observing people in nature, and that's very much in the style of this film. A couple of things tied into the Train Dreams conversation in general. One is that this Clint Bentley is the director of this film, and he has a production and writing partner, Greg Quedar, and they take turns. One directs and then the other one directs. And last year, their film that they worked on together with Quedar directing was Sing Sing. Have you ever seen Sing Sing?
I have not, but it's got one of my favorite actors in it, hasn't it? Who's in it?
It's Coleman Domingo, who got an Academy Award nomination. So anyone hasn't seen that, it's on HBO Max, so you can watch it very conveniently. And I kind of got lost in the shuffle last year. Early on, it was a lot of conversation that it was going to like win Best Picture. I think it did get nominated for Best Picture, but it kind of got lost in the shuffle at the end of the year because of a botched A24 release. But like I said, it's on HBO Max, and it is truly an uplifting and amazing story. A lot of their films deal with these kind of different forms of trying to define masculinity in different situations. Of course, this one very different as well. But in this case, Sing Sing is in Sing Sing prison. And the minor, I don't know if you call this a spoiler or not, but I just want to mention that it's truly a remarkable revelation when you watch that movie that other than Coleman Domingo, all the other actors, it's a program based on a true program where these prisoners write scripts for themselves, like as a group. They perform them for each other. They practice, and it kind of gives their lives some meaning as they're spending the rest of their lives in jail for some of these men. And the other than Coleman Domingo, the entire cast is these people who are in this program. And it's not Domingo. There is another character who I don't have his name at my fingertips, unfortunately. I should have looked them up. But the other lead in the film is one of these non-professional actors. And he did not get an Academy Award nomination, but this guy's performance is absolutely incredible, because when he first shows up, you see him playing this kind of very brutish, the kind of the stereotypical character that you would expect a non-professional character trying to play themselves, quote unquote. And you're like, okay, I know what I'm getting from this guy. And then over the course of the film, you realize, oh my God, that was a performance. And you got to see this other side of him change as the movie progresses. His performance is truly remarkable. I don't know if he's out of prison now, but like this guy probably has a career as an actor. And I hope he does do more work in the future. Yeah, it's really impressive film and very uplifting. Just the fact it exists is kind of in and of itself this beautiful thing. So do check that out. Oh, and one more recommendation in the line with these. I think I mentioned this to you already, Darren, and I have actually shouted this out on the podcast before in connection to The Bear. But there's a film that came out 2 years ago. Wim Wenders, a German director who had moved to Japan, made a movie called Perfect Days. The actor in this film, who's also, I don't remember his name either, but he won Best Actor that year at the Cannes Film Festival. He's the lead from Cure, if you guys have ever seen that horror movie a very famous Japanese horror movie. But this is not a horror film. It's about this man who, like, late in his life, he cleans the toilets, and these kind of beautiful toilets in nature that exist all over Tokyo. You see him, just the process of his day. And there's more plot to it than that. I'm oversimplifying. His sister comes into the mix again, and we realize a tragedy in his past as well that kind of comes out over the course of the film. But for big stretches of the film, it's just him methodically, his routine of the day, like how he rides his bike to work, his loving his routine and interacting with people and having these perfect little moments. And again, it's this idea that this mundane life is valuable, and in some ways that he has a very rich life because he isn't caught up in oftentimes what we're always caught up with. And that film also really touched me very deeply. And it's called
Yes.
Perfect Days. And it's on Hulu, by the way, if anybody wants to watch that.
Yeah. The fact that you just said they're not caught up, like they're not on their phones, they don't have a million friends around them. They're just in their environment and they're doing their thing. And I found that really quite beautiful in Train Dreams, where he cuts down trees and he learns over his life that maybe that's not the greatest thing. Like, you're cutting down trees that are 500 years old, and maybe that has like a karmic effect on your life. But that's what he does. That's kind of the only thing he can do, and that's how he makes a living for his family. And there's something very beautiful in that.
For sure. People who are not doing beautiful things every day are the cast of The Chair Company.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so I'm going to spoil The Chair Company finale. So if anybody's behind, you might want to jump ahead. But okay.
I don't think it's spoilerable. It is just out there, man.
This one of all the episodes, like, you sound like you're a crazy person recapping this show week to week. But this one it opens with this dad dancing with his daughter at this wedding, and he gets nauseous because he smoked too many cigars. And then he's sitting
10 cigars, Victor. He shouldn't be dancing.
That's for sure. 10 cigars, yeah. And then he's at the bar, and there's some con man there whose name is Stacy Crystals, by the way.
Great.
Just a great name for a character. Who is trying to convince him that he really has musical ability. And then we realize in pretty short order that this is some kind of con he's working. And this guy reveals that he's rich. So he probably finds these marks and says, you could be in Hollywood, man. And he's going to bilk him out of money somehow. And he's on the phone with somebody when this kid shows up with a plastic gun and says, are you Stacy Crystals? And tells him, you ruined my dad's life or something. And he shoots him in front of the wedding. And this character, other than his name, does not play into the plot anywhere else previously in the show, or not that I've noticed anyway, or now. But I guess it kind of, I think there's something forming here. I guess that's what we can kind of explore here. What plot is possibly being developed here? But I mean, what else is going on here? Jeff, Ron's boss, Jeff.
Ron's boss, yeah.
Is apparently possibly involved with this as well. But I don't think it's something nefarious, or maybe there is. My guess here is that he was suckered into one of these things because he thinks he has musical ability. So I think that's part of the conspiracy that's being revealed here. But what else is here? His dog, he loses his dog after maybe getting a concussion. The neighbor whose dog this might actually belong to, or maybe not, might be a vampire or something.
The fact that he inadvertently returns the man's dog and then gets a selfie with the dog, yes, and then sees on Instagram that people were trying to save this dog. They were deliberately letting the gate open so the dog would escape, Minnie Mouse, the dog. And Ron has just given the dog straight back to a possible vampire.
Oh, God. What else do we see here? Ron's son doesn't want to play basketball anymore. He thinks he's going to have a better chance of getting a college scholarship by making stop motion animation. And a bizarre, as you would expect, stop motion animation, his first attempt here. So this is the old guy who's been coming over to the house every night. That's what they've been doing, is making this stop motion animation. The website designer that they found last week is chained to Mike's bathtub. And then, of course, the big reveal at the end, the person who's been calling him all this time is actually Amanda's boyfriend, who looks like he's had some kind of weird work done. And he claims that she has psychic powers and made the chair collapse. And that's what led to this whole entire course of events. And then
Yeah.
we cut
Ends
the
on-
black. That's the finale of this. That's the episode finale right there. That's the wrap up for the season, everybody.
Well, you've spoiled everything.
I can't spoil it. Whatever anyone who heard that thinks I've just had a seizure.
But Ron's boss is quite a good singer of yacht rock karaoke, but only if it's in his key.
The scene in the bathroom, by the way, where he's playing his recorded song, and what is it, the red woman or whatever, and then the red ball. He's playing the two side by side. Pretty hilarious stuff.
Yeah, the on hold music from the Red Ball Company. Yeah.
Red Ball, that's right. I mean, is it even worth speculating on what this conspiracy might be? Or once again, is there any conspiracy, or is this just like the chair broke and yes, this guy's out there scamming people into probably paying him money to make these stupid demos, and then maybe these songs end up on someone's voicemail somewhere? But is there a conspiracy going on? Is there a vampire? That would be the best if that's the only real conspiracy here.
He did hit his head pretty hard in the woods just before he saw the vampire. So his poor daughter, who is really trying to help him, she's kind of invested in his conspiracy theories now. And then he just goes, don't worry about it. Don't worry. I know the answer now. I know all the answers, but I can't tell you. So just forget it. Don't worry about it. She's like, what?
He's such a mess too, because he's like, I can't tell you. And they keep saying, because someone who thinks they earned something, maybe they didn't really earn it, throwing his poor wife under the bus, who must be the most patient person in the world. And of course, it turns out like he's so fixated on the woman who gave her the money for her business that she's somehow connected to this thing. And her name is not coming up. But meanwhile, all this other stuff is coming in. But I mean, just to be clear, I kind of buried the lead here. I mentioned it last week briefly, but this show has been renewed for a second season. And I can't imagine, like when I texted you yesterday, the funniest thing after watching that was the idea that they would not bring this back for a second season, that people would just watch this and have this finale and be like, what the hell is going on? The end. That's it. That's what you get.
It's genius. I mean, we did speculate the last week could have been a final episode of a season, and then you didn't have to do another one. But the geniuses that they are, that they've made this episode, that there has to be another season. There has to be a continuation of this story, because you cannot leave us like this.
I wonder if HBO know what they were getting, like where they're like, okay, we can leave it here. And I think the last week's episode would have been a satisfying one and done finale, where it's like, was there a conspiracy? Was this woman involved? Is it all in his head? And does he just suck it up and dance with his wife and then just smile in the mirror and think to himself, I'm a good husband? And when this is all a giant delusion, or maybe he was right and he's doing a good thing. And that's it. That's good. Like, live in the ambiguity. I'm fine with that, right? And then HBO is like, no, we're bringing you back for another season. And they're like, okay, we have something just in case. We shot a finale that leaves all possible options open for next year. Oh my God.
So good. I'm still, that opening scene, I'm just stunned.
Yeah, I mean, to talk about like putting you off kilter on that opening scene, just the way it pays off. I'm like, who's this person? What is going on now?
So I thought it was his daughter's wedding, because his daughter was going to get married.
Right,
and then
exactly.
Someone completely random wedding.
And we never saw her husband. We just saw him dancing with her. All of this is really strange.
Oh my God.
Then there's also the story about Mike, and that he tried to dance with her at her wedding too, because she had her dad's heart implanted in him. And I'm like, is this story connected somehow? It is so confusing that you had this unrelated wedding and we have this story about a wedding, and then his daughter's currently getting married. And I'm like, too many weddings going on in this show.
So Mike's got a donated heart from this other family, and now he thinks he's connected because he's got the heart. Yeah.
It's just crazy. It's just insane. So,
well, it's great that we have this type of television on, that we can just watch it and go, okay.
There's nothing else like it. That's for sure. I mentioned to you when we were watching The Lowdown, that had some Twin Peaks vibes going on, just with the kind of off-kilter characters and that kind of mildly Twin Peaksy. But this has got to be the most Twin Peaks show on TV, where it's like just mundane things. Everything is like ominous. Everything's just off in little ways. This episode, though, it's not off in little ways. This episode is completely bonkers from beginning to end.
Wow, amazing.
All right, let's talk about Welcome to Derry. In the Name of the Father.
Yeah, there's no segue. There's no segue from the chair company. You just have to, it's just cut straight to the next show.
Yeah, I was trying to come up with some kind of connection there, but I couldn't really come up with anything there. This episode of TV, for me, was a good episode of TV, and it hinted at the show that this could have been from the very beginning. And I think that this is a problem for sure with this season of TV and with a lot of TV shows, that this season is just way too long. And I don't think they knew what to do with it, because just seeing Dick Halloran and Chris Chalk, this actor playing Halloran, really well, he's like a standout in this episode, dealing with this now, having this power, the box open where he can like now see dead people again, which of course we know from the mythology of Dick Halloran from the Shining movies as well. So this is his origin story. But seeing that aspect of the story, and then seeing the kids, the chemistry of the kids actually starting to work. And then maybe if there was just fewer characters on this show, this would have been better, because this episode, maybe if we got into this episode like 3 episodes into the show, I would have been way more on board with this show at this point than I am.
Yeah, that's a good point that you make about the kids' chemistry, because they are really into it now. But you're right, it's too far down the track. One thing we didn't talk about last week is I really enjoyed the scene where the kids took the anti-anxiety drugs and they were just kind of floating through the sewers. I was like, is this? So it was kind of edgy in that way. I thought was fun. And yeah, we get more of Marge this week and her little budding romance with the other guy, the drummer, which is fun. That's all fun. And I agree, O'Halloran has really come into his own as an actor as well. And yeah, we get more Madeline Stone. I couldn't quite get the whole link between Madeline Stowe's character. Did it take her father, or yeah, I couldn't quite get that. But yeah, it's way too far into this series to really care too much. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, course correcting now is kind of late, but I was a little disappointed because I thought that this individual episode was good. And although it still has obviously problems that have kind of come with the show in general, the cast is too big. The things I care about are relatively small in this broader cast. And then, of course, you have like the Native American parallel storyline, which has been getting short shrift. So it's, again, too big. It's too unwieldy what they've come up with here, to the fact that like you can only kind of have a good episode when you cut away a lot of these other characters. But it's still kind of overstuffed. Like you mentioned, like the Madeline Stowe character, which I kind of like this. I've heard some negative things about it online. I kind of like this idea that she's almost like channeling the Pennywise character, and that Pennywise, I guess this version of Pennywise, which this is in the book and in the movie as well, even though this is like a evil from outer space. Believe it or not, that's actually true. But even though this is like an evil from outer space that has been there since before people existed, that the form that everybody's been seeing, at least in this most recent iterations, is this particular clown, and that clown was her dad. And apparently the plan is to go back another 28 years so we would actually see that backstory in the next season. But I guess we're going to get a preview of it right now, because in the trailer for next week, we see the 2 things happening that you would expect. One is the attack on the Black Airmen's jazz bar, whatever this illicit bar they have out in the woods is, and also a flashback to the origin of Pennywise back in 28 years earlier. And presumably, yeah, that it has been in some way, this demon has taken residence inside of her dad. But I liked the black and white flashback sequence. Yeah, I liked some of the stuff here in this episode.
Yeah, she's almost inadvertently feeding kids.
Yeah.
Which I think that's what they were getting at, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, and it was 28 years earlier. So when you see her, I guess actually, I think that no, it'd be, yeah. So 28 years earlier, when we see that flashback, she was working at the mental hospital. So I guess there would be two seasons. Like, so we have the plan for this, by the way, is to have two seasons. One is 28 years previous, and then another 28 years previous. So I think this would be 56 years previous is when the it character took possession of her dad, because that we're seeing 28 years in the past when she worked at the mental hospital, and
Right.
she's already an adult, right? So it's not when she was trying to reconnect with her dad as a girl.
Right. Okay. That's interesting. The photos of her dad, she kind of looks like Jack Nicholson as well, which I couldn't get over.
Yes. Yeah, when he pops up in the window. I like Bill Skarsgård. I mean, he's in this performance. He's a little too goofy in that
Yeah.
moment where he's playing the human version of her dad.
I did the Black Spot or whatever the jazz club was
Yeah.
called. I think that's in the original novel as well.
Yes. Mhm.
That reminded me of Sinners, especially the kind
big
of joy.
time. Big time.
Yeah. Yeah, the joyous celebration of the music. And I think Marge was sneaking a beer as well. So she did drugs in the last episode, and now she's doing booze. Like,
Well, she was
Marge.
drinking
She's
Army
great.
Coke, right? It was Army Coke, which of course I assume had some whiskey in it or something.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. Great. I love Marge.
Yeah. And there's a perfect example of where I kind of feel like the Marge character lost her way, and I really liked her here as well. So part of the thing that and seeing the little romance forming between Will and Ronnie as well, sweet. So
Yeah.
A lot of things were working here for me.
And this was episode 6, did you say? So another couple more to go.
2 more. So it seems pretty packed, because you have to assume we're going to pick things up immediately from here. We see some of that in the trailer. And of course, we also see scenes from the clown in the past. And we also see that, what's her name? Ingrid? Is that her name? The Madeline Stowe's character, that she is dressing up as her clown dad, and but presumably heading to the same place. So when we do see in the coming attractions, it looks like Pennywise is actually there as the place is on fire. But maybe it's not. Maybe it's her, or maybe it's a combination of both, because maybe she's channeling him in some ways. She is overloaded here. I mean, I do appreciate seeing Madeline Stowe, who's kind of disappeared from the movies for quite some time. I do see her. I think she's doing a good job, and I like seeing her here. And in general, I like the daughter dad parallels and how that connects her to Lily, of course, who has her own trauma with her dad. So there's some of those things are working, but she's so overloaded. She's like, not only she's Lily's confidant, and she's Pennywise's daughter, and she was the woman that Hank Grogan was secretly having the affair with. So of course she knows where he is. It's like they need her to make that whole entire plot run, and that's a little too much. It's a little too on the nose.
Yeah, I completely forgot about that affair and the importance of that. Yeah, that completely slipped me by. And also the other more father trauma is poor old, is it Will? He's getting hit by his father, which seemed completely out of character as well for his father to do that. Yeah, and I'm not sure what they're doing with that family either. Yeah, it's just a bit mystifying to me, to be honest.
I mean, it does I agree. I don't love that twist with the character, but it is in keeping with the themes of the book, because I'm not sure how much they dig into this in the movies, but it's definitely a big theme of the books, which is the idea that Pennywise is like personified and only the kids see the actual clown. But every 28 years, and this is what King is kind of exploring, is just when there are these historical, really ugly, for example, the Tulsa riots, when there's like these kind of ugly historical things that happen, and then we try to cover it all up, and we say, oh, we're just this happy community again, and then again, like 20 years later, 30 years later, some other really horrible thing happens, and then we all try to cover it up. So that's what the metaphor of Pennywise, this cycle in history. So what normally happens in these iterations in the It novel is that it's not just that Pennywise is out there killing children, but that he seems to permeate the culture. So presumably here, I think the cops trying to pin this all on Hank is like they are infested with this evil, that Will's dad is experiencing some of this as well. And even like Lily now with this weapon, that she's kind of poisoned in some ways as well, because she is starting to become really paranoid. She doesn't want to give it up. And so I think that there's this idea that fear and leads to these kind of violent uprisings. And of course, that's what we're going to see kind of culminating next week. However, like you mentioned, this is episode 7. So I'm pretty sure there's going to be the fire there at the bar. There's going to be the fallout from all of that. And then and of course, like more backstory on it. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's almost the entire episode. And then it's like you're going to have almost the following episode would have to be like everybody, like Halloran and the kids, all in the same place at the same time, are going to realize that they are all fighting the same thing. And then they're going to go into the military base and kill it. And I know that's not a spoiler because we know that thing gets killed every 28 years, seems to be the cycle, right? So I presume that's what happens until the events of the movie that we have already seen, which is kind of the problem with the prequel, is that like where can you go with the story?
So even though it comes back every 28 years or whatever, they're still successful at suppressing it or killing it. Yeah. I don't know, but it is interesting that the cycle of how I like what you said when it infiltrates the town, even though Hanlon's impervious to fear apparently, but it still affects him that he becomes violent. And also when you said the metaphor about everybody just conveniently forgets it. Everyone forgets what happened in their childhood, to kind of until you're forced to deal with it again, and then you remember the kind of atrocities that happen. Yeah, I think that's interesting.
And that's something we see across the board with all these adaptations, right? So you think about in It Chapter 2 that everyone had forgotten each other until they went back, and then it all starts coming back to them. And we see it here as well with the Francis, right? Francis, the head of the military, that he is same thing. He says, I had forgotten all about you until I came back. So it's like you said, it's this things like these idealized moments of the past, like your childhood, you only remember the good things. And then like as you get closer to some kind of ugly truth, you start seeing more of it. And that's something that's being explored not only in it, but in a lot of Stephen King's novels, especially from this period of time. Like you think about something, a much more realistic version of the same type of story that he wrote around the same time, which is the Stand By Me story, which is just a short story, but the movie, of course, very famous. But it's the same idea, right? That you're looking back nostalgically at this great summer we had together, but there was a dead body and we almost got murdered. And it's like there's like the reality of that fantasy of that period of time as well, right? And that's kind of what's interesting here. I don't even know if they're doing this intentionally. I did think about Sinners when they're out at that club out in the woods. But I also thought about the fact that the black spot is called, right? The black spot. And how sometimes it's just a cliched version of how you present this type of thing. So, but at the same time, it does feel a very idealized version of it, which again is what is being debunked in all of these iterations or these kind of adaptations of the It story. The idea that like, yeah, they're having a great time. And then of course it's all disrupted by the ugly outside world, which is still like vilifying them and looking for somebody. It literally do have somebody there that they're holding up. But you can imagine that like these type of things happen sometimes where they're just there because they're just there to round up the usual suspects, regardless of whether they have any kind of real information or not. And yeah, it's like the double-edged sword again of like, right, the illusion, this kind of fantasy of how great this hanging out at the jazz club in the 1950s was, when I'm really not supposed to be here. And then, of course, like then you could die in a fire because these racist people show up and try to burn the place down.
Yes, in masks too.
Yeah.
Everyone in masks. Yeah.
So we probably don't have time, of course, again, to do a full breakdown on Watchmen. I'm curious to get your feel for, did you watch through episode 6? How far did you get?
Yeah, I did watch through episode 6. Absolutely. I love this TV series. Every episode is completely different. There's stylistic changes, there's character changes, and episode 6 was a trip with some powerhouse filmmaking and really emotional stuff. The Angela Aber, the actress, she's just so good. She plays such a fantastic role, and I'm just loving rewatching this. Yeah. What about yourself?
Yeah, I watched up through 6. I wanted to watch more even. I don't know why in my memory of it that 6 was maybe just because there was such a reaction to it among viewers that it was like such a step forward in the quality of the show because I actually think that first of all, I think all the episodes have been very good. I think maybe
Mm.
episode 3 is the one that I think is the most kind of all over the place for me. But episode 5, when we see Mirror Mask, is that his name? When we
Looking
see
Glass.
the Looking Glass, I keep confusing it with something else. But Looking Glass, when you see his backstory, that's also an exceptional episode, which also ends on this very cool cliffhanger.
Epic. Yeah, I really like that one too. I mean, maybe because I'm a bit of a white misfit myself. I identify with Looking Glass a bit more than all the black characters, which I'm sure people will intensely identify with. But yeah, that was a cool episode. And also I had to show my wife the opening, was it of the episode 4 where we introduced to Lady True.
Oh yes.
Um, just cold. Never, maybe we heard of this character, but never seen her. And then all of a sudden she comes into this scene and into this world with this couple who have been trying to have a baby all these years, and she offers them exactly what they want. And it's just such, with the timer, the hourglass on the table, and she says, "You've got 30 seconds." I think just fascinating filmmaking. Yeah, so fun.
Because she knows that something's going to arrive. There's something on a trajectory to that very
Yeah,
location, and she
yeah,
needs to
yeah.
make the deal as ASAP. However, she did have this baby ready to go, so she probably had this conversation planned far ahead of time. And of course, we'll know a lot more about that when we get to episode 8. Speaking of being able to look forward and backwards in time, actually, so very interesting. But yeah, episode 8 is incredible. Episode 7 and 8 are both incredible. Can't wait to rewatch them. And I thought episode 9 was a little disappointing. It has a lot of loose ends, but I did think that the emotional beats of that final episode are so good. I have not rewatched it though in 6 years, so I can't wait to go through it again, especially episode 8, which is so I remember just being blown away by, without spoiling anything for people who are watching along with us. We will do a full breakdown next week. By the way, Darren, I commit to this. We're going to do a full breakdown next week because we can watch it through the end. And I think, like, other than talking about Welcome to Derry, which is probably going to be like a 15-minute conversation about exactly expanding on the things we already suggested in this conversation, I don't think there's any other big releases or anything big coming out. The week after Thanksgiving is usually a dead spot on the calendar. We could talk about Jay Kelly. Is that the name of the show, the movie I just mentioned?
Yep.
Netflix
Yep.
series. Yeah, Jay Kelly. So we could talk about that too. Again, I don't know if we're going to do a full breakdown of that, but we could have a brief review of that. But I think we have plenty of space to talk about the success of this as an adaptation. And then I might even record separately a full spoiler if you've watched or read Watchmen, the comic, and how there's all these Easter eggs, like tons of them in this show that you don't need to know all of them to appreciate it. But if you do, if you have watched it, I'll include that there as well. So we'll take advantage of that. And then the week after that, Darren, not only does the Welcome to Derry show end, but then a few days after that, we have our first episode of Fallout. That's our next episode, our next coverage, I should say. Next series we'll be covering is
Fallout's back. Yes, I saw the stars of Fallout were in Australia last week, to do a bit of promotion in front of the Opera House. So yeah, Amazon's throwing a bit of money behind it. So I quite enjoyed the first episode, the first series of Fallout. Didn't have any familiarity with the video games, but yeah, fun series.
Yep.
And love Ella Purnell, and love the other guy. What's his name?
Kyle MacLachlan.
Kyle MacLachlan. Love Kyle MacLachlan. But what about the other guy? Guy from White Lotus.
Oh, Walter Goggins. Yeah,
Walter Goggins. Love Walter Goggins.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, so good. Yeah.
So yeah, a lot of fun. We'll be watching that starting next month, and wrapping up Pluribus, of course. And then Darren, just as Fallout ends, Industry will be kicking off on HBO, and we'll have that to talk about as well.
Awesome. Well, I feel like Fallout, they usually drop that all at once, do they? Or maybe not. Maybe it's a week-to-week thing. I can't remember. But Industry, yeah, really looking forward to the soap that's becoming.
Well, I mean, this will be good for the podcast, by the way. Fallout, I think they dropped 5 episodes last time, and then they went week to week for the remainder. This is going week to week from week 1. So
Cool.
it'll be very convenient for us. I'm always looking for those on the podcast. The binge is always tough. The binge is always tough.
It is. Yeah, it is. It's much nicer to talk about each episode week, especially if there's a little bit to dig into.
And I don't have to watch 10 hours of content either. So always a pleasure for that. All right, Darren, thank you again for the conversation. We'll be finishing up Watchmen, of course, and we will be talking a little bit about Derry, a little bit about Jay Kelly, probably, and then maybe previewing Fallout as well in the next episode. And then, we'll be picking up that as soon as we wrap up Welcome to Derry.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Victor.
All right, Darren. Thanks.